Hasbro's prices are too high. Hasbro's QC isn't great. Mayfix makes a better one. Mezco makes the best, but they're expensive. I've seen all these things said by different collectors all over now. And so that got me thinking, could we just make our own action figures? And so today we're going to be talking about 3D printing. So there's a couple types of 3D printing that are the most common. There's FDM printing, which is just a roll of plastic filament that gets heated up and then printed out. And then there's resin printing, which is resin, and then it gets cured with UV light layer by layer in order to create your 3D structure. So what exactly can we do with 3D printing when it comes to action figures, right? So clearly we have the ability to make tables, crates, other structures that you would have as part of a diorama, but we can also make weapons. So a friend of mine on Facebook showed that he purchased a 1/12 scale gun from, I think, South Wales, and that when it arrived broken in pieces. And that's a huge bummer. So I was like, hey, can I find this file and can I print it out? I was able to track down a file of the particular gun model that he purchased. I purchased the file, I printed it out myself, and I think it came out pretty well. So here's what I printed. Here's the end result. And so you can see it's not 100% perfect. There are some imperfections there. And you can see more of it on this side. You can see a little bit there. So it will require a little bit of sanding and probably a bit of paint, but just look at that level of detail that you're getting. You can see the lettering in the gun. You can see the sight right there, which is fantastic. There's just a ton of detail that you're getting. And I would say that that's pretty on par with the Legends scale weapons, right? So we have a shield soldier here. Here's one of the guns that they have. A pretty good amount of detail on there. And here's the 3D printed one that I have. I've not been 3D printing for long, so I've got a lot to learn, but considering how well this came out, I'm pretty excited by it. And it looks like you can grip it just fine, which is great. I'm not putting the trigger finger through there because these are still pretty fragile pieces, especially because you can see how thin they are. So I'm not going to put that through because that will break it. But otherwise, I think it looks great. And it didn't take terribly long to print out. It didn't take a lot of materials to do. And honestly, it wasn't even that hard to set up either. So I purchased the resin printer a few weeks ago just because I did want to try some different action figure related things. And I'm really excited about some other projects that I have in mind. Now, I'm not advocating that every person needs to go out and buy their own 3D printer to be able to print out their own weapons, because obviously there are sellers that are doing that. But if you see yourself printing out a lot of different things, then maybe it makes sense to maybe purchase your own printer rather than purchase printed parts from somebody else. Now, speaking of that, I've been following this guy for quite some time, and he goes by 3D Zip Guy, and he makes full action figures that have articulation and are technically licensed characters, but he doesn't really call them by the licensed character name. And that's why I've got Spider-Man out. So this is our Spider-Man Tobey Maguire from the No Way Home 3-pack. And it's an okay figure. It's our first official Hasbro Tobey Maguire release since acquiring the license from Toy Biz. And this is something that 3D Zip Guy has done his own version of. So what's interesting is that he designs them to be printed specifically with FDM printing, which is a bit more ubiquitous than resin printing. However, I don't think the detail is quite as good as I would want it to be personally. But to be fair, that might also be because I don't think I'm very good at FDM printing either. So let me show you what I have. Here is the head that I have printed out. You can see that it looks okay. You can see kind of the detail there, sort of. Like I said, maybe this is something that's just totally outside my current skill level. However, I went ahead and resin 3D printed it. And check out this guy. And to me, that looks absolutely fantastic. That looks so good to me. You can see all the detail, and hopefully I can get this to show up on camera. So you can even see the little tiny detail on the costume, like between the web lines. But that to me is just phenomenal. And honestly, I think it even kind of looks better than the official head itself. Now, I know the head is scaled a little bit bigger than our official Hasbro release, but the thing about 3D printing is that you can scale it to whatever you want. And that's the cool thing about 3D Zip Guy's designs, is that they even specify that you can scale it up to a 12-inch figure or potentially beyond if you have that printer to do that with. So this file from 3D Zip Guy is actually free. The idea is that you print it out to see if you like it, and then you can actually purchase the rest of the body and make a complete figure. the way that this works, the way the articulation works is actually with zip ties. And so, let's see here, just to show you, we have the chest piece, we have a neck piece, we have the ball joint that connects to the head, and then obviously the head. And so I'll go ahead and put the zip tie through right now. So first zip tie through the hole in the torso, and then we'll put that through our neck piece. And then this will go through our ball joint, and then the zip tie will just come back through the neck and then back through the hole in the chest. So there is our completed chest with our neck and our ball joint. And now I'm just gonna pop on the head. And here is our completed bust. And that looks way cool. The detail is just really, really great on there. And as part of the file, he does include this little stand, although I messed up when I printed it, and my base of the base is actually all kind of goofy looking, but this should be flat. Then this would sit on here, and then you could have it as a little kind of display piece if that's what you wanted to do. But obviously the idea is that you are so impressed by it that you then purchase the rest of the body, and then you print it out, and then you paint it, and then you have an amazing action figure. So you can see that the articulation is actually pretty decent because you have movement at the neck, right? You can kind of go all the way around as you see fit. Now mine is a little bit loose because I think I need to tighten my zip tie just a bit more, but you get the idea of how well it can look. And just so you know, this is me having printed this with no post-processing besides removing the supports that I needed to print it out with. So I've not sanded anything, I've not painted or primed anything. This is it as it is. And I think that's so cool because this is okay, but this is just so much better. Comment below if you want to see me print out the rest of the parts and complete the full action figure and do a review on it. But otherwise, I think you can see where I'm going here, because if you look at 3D Zip Guy's website, he has way more characters than just Spider-Man. He's got Superman, Batman, a pretty good Wonder Woman, several others that look fantastic. I've also been looking at a different creator that makes giant robot designs that can be 3D printed, and I've been starting one. That's another secret project that I've got in the works. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not yet so you can see how that comes out. But I think you can see where I'm getting at. 3D printing with action figures can take your collection to a whole new level. And I think this is just the start. Considering the upfront cost of purchasing a printer and the materials, that's not great. But if you look at the grand scheme of how many action figures and accessories that you could print out and how much you could save over time, my friend that purchased the gun, I think he paid like 17 bucks or so. But a bottle of resin just to print out costs about 20 to 30 bucks, and you could easily print at least 30 guns of this type alone and still have a ton left over. That's a lot. That's amazing. And if you do like 3D printed stuff, then you might like my video on my custom Let Me Solo Her figure that I'll link right here.